Hello. Probably BGVP can be considered as one of the strongest debuts on the Chinese in-ear monitors market. They released two really great models that became really popular, DMG and DM6. I review both of them, and now they've decided to release an upgraded versions, and today we will talk about DM7. You know, with DM7 they proved that they can create really sophisticated solutions. So let's see on the back panel. Actually, frequency response is charted small here, so it's not really valuable, but 6 Knowles and Sony unbalanced armatures per each earpiece. It sounds pretty impressive, and also they've implemented unusual schema with 4-way crossover and with 4 separate sound bores. So you know, it's a really complex solution for the company that debuted not so far ago. Price is pretty balanced or pretty normal for this scheme. Of course, $300 it's a bit more on expensive side for the Chinese company, but I think in this case it's a price that is really can be considered normal. Probably I have said everything that we need to say in the preface, and now let's have a closer look. Box is made in BGVP style. It's slim, really small. As you can see, it suffered a little bit during the fight with local mail. Probably local mail hate in-ear monitors, and they're trying to crush the box as much as possible. Polygraphy is really modest, but everything is done really accurately. And on the back side we can see that they have pretty high sensitivity, 113 decibels, and relatively low impedance. So they need something with not high level of background noise. Of course, it's not the most noise-speaking model, but anyway. Inside there is a box made from recycled paper, and here are in-ear monitors themselves. So as you can see, set of tips, foams, silicons, and DM7 themselves. Also here you will have cable, even more tips, and cleaning tool. So as you can see, accessory set, I think it's pretty normal. So 3 set of 3 pair of tips, even pair of foams, I think really good. In terms of design and build quality, it's traditional in-ear monitors. We've seen that many times before. It's made of resin. I've got version with transparent shell and pearl-like faceplates, but there are a few different color options. As usual, everything is done pretty nicely. Really accurate faceplate with company logo, looks pretty attractive. And of course they've got good ergonomic shape, fitting into vast majority of ears, maybe besides the smallest ones. And as you can see, inside you can count the drivers, you can see the crossover schema, you can see the socket, so you can count drivers and you can be sure that they don't cheat in us. Here is soundboard, it's straight, it has average length, so it's providing a bit below average sound isolation. Here are 4 separate bores for different frequencies, so everything as they promised. Unfortunately, they don't have this lip for holding the tips, but it's also typical in recent Chinese designs, so even besides that, tips are holding okay, at least for now. They're a bit hard to install, to put them in place, but practice makes perfect. Besides the missing lip, everything is built really nicely. And also I really like the stock cable. It's good in terms of acoustic performance and in terms of design. So it's one of the greatest stock cables. It's pretty thick, but at the same time it's really soft, really lightweight, really flexible. It has decent MMCX connectors with good click, really nice. here they are. They have ear hooks but no memory wire, and cable is really braided accurately. Goes way down below to the splitter. They have chin slider, they have splitter, and after splitter it goes braided way down below to the jack. Actually, you know, third-party cables can even improve their sound a little bit, but this cable is really good anyway. It's soft, it has almost zero microphonic, really flexible, really comfortable in usage, not getting hard when it's cold. That's also pretty important. So in terms of design and build quality, really good model. And of course about the sound. Describing the cable in previous part of review, I forgot to mention that it's not only looking great and really comfortable in use, but it's also a really decent mix of silver-plated copper and pure silver, so it's also good in terms of materials. And let's go back to the sound. Of course, they don't require burn-in, as it's pure balanced armatures, and they rarely require some burn-in, so you just need to find the proper tips. For me, the best ones are this gray with red, but you should try different options too. Now let's have some player on the table and let's proceed. Actually, BGVP said that they were targeting Harman target curve, but they don't 100% fit that curve, but they try their best to fit it, and because of that they've created really natural and fairly musical and balanced in-ear monitors. But probably let's move from low frequencies. Bass is a bit accented. It's the main accent is made on the mid bass, and it's typical well-tuned balanced armature, so you don't have this big weight of dynamic drivers. You won't have this huge amount of low frequencies, but instead you will have really fast, really well textured, really super detailed low frequencies. Main accent is done on the mid bass. Deeper layers of bass are audible, but they are less in quantity, so the sub bass is present but in less quantities than mid bass, so it's not a model to crush your eyes from their orbits. It's a model for those who prefer natural instruments and acoustic bass mainly. Well, not mainly, acoustic instruments and with low going notes. And as an example, in this for this part of sonic spectrum, mixing the words, I've got Musica Nuda, perfect duo of vocal and big acoustic bass. And because of that acoustic bass, I use this track as an illustration, and it sounds, you know, really crazy, hyper detailed and hyper realistic and really enjoyable. You know, I thought that I should get more such music besides Musica Nuda. You know, you will hear all these parts of note representation. You will hear how fingers are touching the string, how string is pulled, how it's released and vibrating. Really enjoyable experience. Mids are also pretty typical in terms of what you will expect from balanced armatures you will get. They are really detailed with good level of micro detailization. They are pretty critical to the quality of recording, so you need something properly recorded. And at the same time there is zero coloration on the mids, so from one point of view you will have really what is present on record, you will hear only that. From other point of view, if you got used to some coloration, if you got used to some additional weight or some highlighted parts of sonic spectrums, if you want some peaks, it's not the model where you will get. So sometimes they could sound a bit probably not thin, they could sound a bit too honest, probably it's the correct way of describing their sound. So if a record is poor, you will hear that record is poor, but if something is recorded and mastered really nicely, you will have everything like that. Of course, you will have a great amount of details, and that's the strong part of properly implemented balanced armatures. In terms of stage, they are a bit above average in width and in depth, so it's not a stage monster, but at the same time they are doing really nicely with 3D positioning, and with all that staging effects, they are present and you will definitely enjoy them. As an example for the mid frequencies, I've got a bit unusual track, but anyway, it's Nazareth, Wake Up This Morning. Pretty aggressive, pretty fast, and I like this track with balanced armatures because they are resolving enough to add a bit of resolution to this track, because many dynamic driver models really fail to play this track properly, and it sounds emotional enough and not bringing too much emotions. And treble, you know, I am not sure about tuning and drivers, but for me treble is the main point of difference between DM6 and DM7. And sometimes people ask, this model worth spending extra money? And in this case, I can say that at least to my taste, DM7 worth any additional price they cost. So probably treble area was the most critical part for me with DM6, and you know, I really like that BGVP understands the issues with their models and they fixing them. So for DM6, stock cable was a bottleneck and treble representation, and in DM7 they fixed both of these parts, and you will have a nice treble. It's a bit accented, so sometimes it sounds a tiny bit harsh, but it's not often option, just sometimes. But at the same time, treble has good extension, a bit faster than they should be at accent decays, but it's also typical for some balanced armatures, and really good resolution that will give you all the necessary details in the treble area. So I will speak about the example. As example for treble, I've got Sting, Be Still My Bleeding Heart. Actually, I could take almost any Sting's track because his tracks are really lightweight, really airy, and they often have a lot of different percussion, some bells, some cymbals and other instruments like that, and this in-ear monitor, thanks to improved treble extension, plays this track really nicely, giving it necessary amount of airness, overtones, and everything that should be in the treble area. So to summarize everything in terms of sound, a bit accented lows, a bit accented treble, and really resolving natural representation typical for the balanced armatures. It's the strong part, and sometimes it's weak part, because you will hear all the issues with the recording. Actually, I've tested them with FIO new cable, LC 2.5, actually LC 4.4D. My version is for the Pentacon, and it also improves a bit attacks and decays on treble, and a bit improves layering. So if you think about improving treble a little bit and you're okay with spending $100, FIO cable can give it to you. In terms of pairing, they require some mid-level dub. Not much sense in listening them with smartphone or something like that, and they require something with low level of background noise. Luckily, we've got a lot of dubs recently released, and it depends on what you want to get. For example, with Hibi, is it Hibi or Hibi? With Hibi R6 Pro, you will have a bit warmer signature with a bit recessed treble, so it's a perfect pairing for the treble phobics. And for example, with FIO M11, you will have more treble, more extension, and less coloration, so they will sound closer to their natural sound. And briefly a few words about comparison. Actually, comparing with DM6, this sound more natural and mainly because of additional treble and better treble layering, better treble detalization. So they giving more treble, and this giving more overtones, and this giving more natural sound with more expanded stage. Comparing with some hybrid models like FIOS FH5 and even probably FH7, hybrid model sounds a bit different, with more weight on low frequencies and a bit less resolution, and this gives you noticeable difference in all other parts of spectrum. For another model that I can recall, it's Fearless S6. I've tested RUI version. Fearless are more weighty with more recessed treble, so they are for those who like mid and bass centric model. Maybe there are some other models, I can't recall them right now, but feel free to ask in the comments. If I could do comparison, I will luckily write a few words. So to summarize everything, I like the way the BGVP developed their lineup. DM7 is noticeable improvement over DM6, and it's a really worthy competitor in this price range in almost every aspect. They are not some giant killers, they are not super perfection, but it's really it's really good model in terms of price to quality ratio. Links to the shop will be in the description if you are interested, and I definitely can recommend you to pay close attention to this model. Thank you for attention.